For decades, fans have wondered what really went on between two iconic Western stars, Dale Robertson and Rory Calhoun. Their on-screen chemistry was undeniable, but behind the scenes, things were far more complicated. Now, after years of silence, Dale Robertson finally shares his thoughts on Rory Calhoun, revealing a story filled with tension, respect, and truths that few ever expected to hear. This is the untold story of two Hollywood legends, their clash, and what it meant for their careers and legacies. When The Silver Whip hit theaters in 1953, audiences were hooked by more than just its thrilling Western plot. Behind the scenes, a storm was brewing between the film's two stars, Dale Robertson and Rory Calhoun. The movie was supposed to be a typical frontier drama, good versus evil, loyalty versus ambition. But for fans who looked a little closer, something else shimmered beneath the surface. The chemistry between the characters wasn't just great acting. It was charged, intense, and almost uncomfortable. And that's because behind the camera, things were far from friendly. At that time, both Robertson and Calhoun were riding high. Dale Robertson, a decorated World War II veteran turned Western hero, had quickly become a household name thanks to his steely-eyed presence and grounded charm. He was known for playing the moral compass in lawless towns, the kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice to command respect. Rory Calhoun, on the other hand, had a darker allure. He played rogues with a smirk, dangerous men who somehow managed to be likable despite their flaws. Calhoun had that slick charisma that drew both fans and suspicion. In The Silver Whip, Robertson played the seasoned marshal who believed in upholding the law by the book. Calhoun's character was hot-headed, trigger-happy, and out for revenge. The clash between the two wasn't just compelling drama. It mirrored the growing rift between the actors themselves. By all accounts, there was no explosive fight or on-set meltdown. But those who were there say you could feel the tension. It was in the silences between takes, the stiff body language, the way they avoided each other when the cameras stopped rolling. And it wasn't just personality differences. It was a battle of values. Robertson was known for taking his roles seriously. He saw himself as a steward of the Western genre, and he had little patience for anyone he thought was faking it. Calhoun, meanwhile, had a reputation for being more relaxed, some would say reckless, with his troubled past and rebellious streak. He didn't always fit the image of a classic American hero, but he brought edge and danger to every role he played, and that's what made him unforgettable. During filming, crew members whispered about disagreements over character choices. Calhoun reportedly didn't like being told what to do, especially by someone like Robertson, who held himself with quiet authority. And Robertson didn't respect what he saw as Calhoun's lack of discipline. It was subtle standoff, not a war, but one that never fully cooled down. For years, both men stayed quiet about what really happened. Hollywood has a way of burying behind-the-scenes drama under red carpet smiles. But The Silver Whip was more than a movie. It was a spark that lit a feud. And while fans admired the on-screen rivalry, they had no idea how real it actually was. But this was just the beginning. What followed would ripple through their careers in ways few people expected. Rory Calhoun wasn't just playing the outlaw on screen. He had lived it, long before he was strutting through saloons or facing off in dusty duels. Rory had a past most Hollywood stars would have done anything to hide. But somehow, his criminal history became part of his myth. He didn't just overcome his demons. He rode them all the way to stardom. Born Francis Timothy McCown in 1922, Calhoun had a childhood marked by instability. He ran away from home as a teenager, bouncing from job to job across California. Ranch hand, mechanic, logger, you name it. But by the time he was 17, things had taken a darker turn. He was arrested for stealing a car and later caught robbing jewelry stores. He even did a stretch in federal prison. In an era when even a minor scandal could destroy a career, Calhoun's rap sheet read like a career-ending obituary. But then something strange happened. Instead of ending him, that rough history became his Hollywood origin story. After getting out of prison, Calhoun was discovered, quite literally, while riding horses in the Hollywood hills. He was good-looking, tough, and had that unmistakable it factor. One of his first big breaks came through none other than Alan Ladd, who introduced him to an agent. But the real twist came when that same agent Henry Wilson, orchestrated a media bombshell years later. In 1955, Confidential magazine, an infamous Hollywood tabloid, published an expose revealing Calhoun's criminal past. The headline was designed to shock. It detailed his prison time, his alias, his wild early life. But here's the kicker. It didn't hurt his career. It helped. That's because the story was planted by Wilson himself as a strategic distraction. Wilson needed to bury rumors about another one of his clients, and Calhoun's past made the perfect smokescreen. In return, Calhoun got more attention than ever. He wasn't just a movie star anymore. He was dangerous, real, and unapologetically himself. The public ate it up. In an era of polished, studio-controlled stars, Calhoun felt authentic. He didn't clean up his image or try to rewrite history. Instead, he leaned into it. That bad boy reputation followed him through a string of westerns and action roles. Audiences believed him when he played criminals and gunslingers because they knew he had actually lived that life. It gave him an edge most actors couldn't fake. But not everyone was impressed. In Hollywood circles, some saw him as a loose cannon. Dale Robertson, for one, reportedly had reservations about Calhoun's character, and not just the ones he played on screen. While Robertson valued honor and integrity, Calhoun represented something messier, more chaotic. And that contrast would become a point of tension between them, especially when the two found themselves sharing the spotlight in the Silver Whip. Calhoun's past may have made him a star, but also cast a long shadow, one that followed him everywhere. And when it came time to work alongside Dale Robertson, a man who held himself to a different standard, those shadows were impossible to ignore. But what was it about Robertson's values that clashed so deeply with Calhoun's rebellious nature? Dale Robertson didn't need to play the hero. He was one. Long before the cameras rolled, Robertson had earned a reputation as a man of principle. He wasn't just another Hollywood actor chasing fame. He had grit, honor, and a deep sense of right and wrong that made him stand out in an industry known for smoke and mirrors. And that unwavering moral compass would eventually put him on a collision course with Rory Calhoun. Robertson's story started far from the glitz of Hollywood. Born in Oklahoma in 1923, he grew up with traditional values. Respect, hard work, loyalty. These weren't just ideals. They were his code. Before he ever set foot on a soundstage, Robertson served in World War II, earning the Bronze and Silver Stars. He didn't talk much about it. He didn't have to. The way he carried himself said it all. There was a calm authority in his voice, a natural confidence that made people listen. When he entered show business, Robertson refused to play the fame game. He didn't chase headlines, attend endless parties, or try to charm his way into elite circles. In fact, he often clashed with Hollywood's expectations. Studio executives wanted polished PR machines. Robertson wanted to tell honest stories. He had no interest in being molded into someone he wasn't. And unlike many stars of the time, he resisted being controlled by powerful agents or publicists. His independence wasn't just rare, it was radical. Robertson became known for his roles in westerns, where his personal integrity blended perfectly with the rugged, honorable characters he portrayed. He brought a quiet strength to every performance, never overacting, never showboating. To fans, he wasn't playing a cowboy. He was a cowboy. And that authenticity made him a favorite among audiences who were tired of plastic heroes. But behind the scenes, that same integrity made him a tough collaborator, especially for co-stars who didn't live by the same rules. Robertson wasn't interested in gossip, drama, or ego. He valued professionalism, discipline, respect, and when he sensed that someone was cutting corners or disrespecting work, he didn't keep quiet about it. That's where his friction with Rory Calhoun began. To Robertson, Calhoun's past wasn't just a tabloid headline. It was a red flag. He reportedly viewed Calhoun as reckless, unpredictable, and possibly dangerous. Even if Calhoun had changed, Robertson wasn't convinced. He didn't buy into Hollywood's love of bad boy redemption. For him, it wasn't about image. It was about who you were when no one was watching. That sense of judgment created a quiet but growing divide between the two men. On set, they were civil, but there was no warmth, no real trust. Robertson kept his distance, choosing instead to focus on his work. To him, that was the only thing that mattered. But Tension simmered under the surface, and when the spotlight faded and the camera stopped rolling, the personal differences between Robertson and Calhoun would come into sharper focus. The next phase of their uneasy relationship wasn't about acting. It was about respect, and what happens when two men with very different codes of honor are forced to share the same space. What happened next would push that fragile piece to its limit. When the cameras weren't rolling on the Silver Whip, the atmosphere on set was far from friendly. The tension between Dale Robertson and Rory Calhoun was no secret to those working alongside them, even if it was never openly discussed. What started as a subtle coldness soon simmered into a quiet but palpable friction that colored the entire production. The root of this tension ran deep. Robertson's unwavering moral code clashed with Calhoun's rebellious nature, creating an invisible wall between the two men. On the surface, they were professionals, actors doing their jobs. But beneath that veneer, their conflicting personalities and values created a storm that nobody wanted to step into. Crew members remember the way they avoided each other in trailers and on breaks. Conversations between the two were clipped, almost mechanical. It wasn't the usual friendly competition you might expect among co-stars. It was something more guarded, even hostile. There was an unspoken challenge in the air, as if each man was silently daring the other to make a move. Acting styles only deepened the divide. Robertson's approach was disciplined and deliberate. He studied his lines carefully, respected the director's vision, and worked to embody the steady, honorable man his roles demanded. Calhoun, by contrast, was more impulsive. He brought a raw energy to his characters, but sometimes ignored direction, choosing instead to rely on instinct. That difference wasn't just artistic. It was personal. One particular story from the set captures the tension perfectly. During a pivotal scene, Calhoun improvised a line, changing the tone of the interaction. Robertson reportedly didn't appreciate the change, feeling it undercut the seriousness of the moment. After filming, the two exchanged terse words. Nothing dramatic, but enough to make everyone aware that the tension was real. It wasn't just their personalities that clashed. Their past played a role, too. Robertson had little patience for Calhoun's troubled history, viewing it as a liability rather than a badge of honor. Calhoun, meanwhile, felt misunderstood and boxed in by Robertson's rigid standards. In private moments, Calhoun allegedly joked that Robertson was too stiff, too by the book, to understand the realities of life, especially his. The clash extended beyond the set. At social events, their paths rarely crossed. When they did, conversations were strained and superficial. Friends say Robertson kept his distance deliberately, unwilling to get dragged into Calhoun's unpredictable world. Still, both men remained professional. There were no public confrontations or scandals. They knew their reputations and careers depended on it, but the tension was like a slow-burning fuse, threatening to ignite at any moment. This silent war wasn't just personal. It reflected bigger cultural shifts in Hollywood. Robertson represented the old guard, the disciplined, moral Western hero. Calhoun embodied a new, edgier breed of star willing to blur lines and challenge norms. Their uneasy partnership on the Silver Whip symbolized the clash between tradition and rebellion, order and chaos. Despite the Cold War behind the scenes, the movie itself was a success. But for Robertson and Calhoun, the cost was high. The experience left scars and unanswered questions. How long could they keep this fragile piece? What was the real impact of their differences on their careers and lives? What followed after the Silver Whip will reveal the answers. It wasn't what anyone expected. After the Silver Whip wrapped, it became clear that the uneasy truce between Dale Robertson and Rory Calhoun was far from healed. The tensions that simmer behind the scenes had lasting effects, not only on their relationship but on their careers, which began to diverge in noticeable ways. What was once two rising stars sharing the spotlight slowly turned into two very different paths, shaped by their personal battles and public images. For Dale Robertson, the post-Silver Whip years were marked by steady growth and respect. He carved out a solid niche as one of television and film's most reliable Western heroes. His authentic, principled style resonated deeply with audiences craving clear-cut heroes in a world that sometimes felt messy and confusing. Shows like Tales of Wells Fargo showcase his ability to embody integrity and strength without needing to shout or resort to flashy antics. Producers and directors trusted him because he was professional and consistent, a man who showed up ready to work, never looking for the spotlight beyond his role. Robertson's reputation for honesty and reliability earned him a steady stream of work for years. Even when westerns began to lose their massive appeal in the late 60s, he managed to transition smoothly, often playing parts that highlighted his grounded nature. His fans admired that about him. He never seemed to compromise his values for fame or money, but this very steadfastness also meant he wasn't interested in shaking things up or courting controversy. He was the moral anchor, and he embraced it fully. Meanwhile, Rory Calhoun's trajectory was much less stable. The exposure of his troubled past in Confidential magazine had thrust him into the public eye, but not all the attention was positive. While the bad boy image made him memorable and gave him a certain edge, it also created challenges. Studios became wary of his reputation. There were whispers about his offset behavior, parties, drinking, and occasional clashes with crew members. Calhoun was known for his charm, but some people saw it as a mask hiding deeper troubles. Despite those hurdles, Calhoun remained a recognizable name, especially in the Western genre. He starred in films and television shows, but his roles often skewed toward the rugged outlaw or the morally ambiguous anti-hero. He played characters with flaws, scars, and secrets, perhaps a reflection of his own complicated life. However, those same flaws sometimes limited his opportunities. Directors weren't always confident he'd deliver a smooth production, and that stigma followed him in casting rooms. Where Robertson projected dependability and discipline, Calhoun was a wild card, an actor both embraced and feared by Hollywood insiders. Their contrast became a textbook example of how two actors from similar backgrounds could be defined not just by talent, but by their choices and how the industry viewed them. Over time, this career divergence mirrored their personal divide. While Robertson was steadily building a legacy as a respected Western icon, Calhoun's reputation remained entangled with his past. Fans loved him for his edge, but Hollywood treated him with cautious distance. And yet, despite their differences, their stories were forever linked. The silent tension on the Silver Whip was more than just a footnote. It was a reflection of how personal history and character could shape a career's course in Hollywood's unforgiving landscape. But the real turning point came years later, when Dale Robertson decided to break his silence and reveal what had really been going on between them. His words shocked many and added a whole new layer to their story, one that fans and insiders have been waiting decades to hear. For decades, the silent tension between Dale Robertson and Rory Calhoun remained just that, silent. Fans speculated, insiders whispered, but neither man publicly addressed a rift that had shaped one of the more intriguing dynamics in classic Hollywood westerns. Then, finally, years later, Dale Robertson broke his silence, giving a candid and revealing look into what really happened between them, and his words stunned many. Robertson's decision to speak up wasn't impulsive. It came after years of reflection, interviews, and seeing how history had shaped the narrative. In an interview, he described their relationship as complicated, marked by mutual respect on the surface, but deep-seated differences beneath. "We were like two different worlds," he said. "I wanted order. He lived in chaos. I was a lawman. He was the outlaw, and that didn't just play out on screen." What made his revelation especially striking was how openly he discussed his reservations about Calhoun, not as an enemy, but as someone whose past and behavior made it difficult to trust him. Robertson didn't mince words. He explained how Calhoun's reputation for unpredictability and his history of trouble offset created a barrier that neither man really tried to cross. "I'm a guy who respects discipline and honor. Rory had his own way, and it wasn't always easy to work with," Robertson admitted. But it wasn't just about differences in personality. Robertson also revealed how the pressures of Hollywood at the time deepened their divide. The studio system demanded stars toe the line, and Robertson played that role well, while Calhoun was more resistant to the rules. That made Robertson question if they were even on the same team. Despite these challenges, Robertson made it clear he didn't hate Calhoun. "There was respect beneath it all," he said. "We both loved the craft, and we both wanted to do good work. But sometimes respect isn't enough." His words gave fans a new perspective, humanizing both men and highlighting how their struggles mirrored larger themes in Hollywood and life. between order and chaos, discipline and rebellion, past mistakes and a desire for redemption. Perhaps the most surprising part of Robertson's revelation was his admission that, while their relationship was strained, also fueled some of the best performances they ever gave. The tension made the roles real, he said. It wasn't acting when we were facing off on screen. There was real feeling behind it. The interview reopened old debates among fans and historians. Was the tension a professional hurdle or a personal feud? Did Hollywood's unforgiving system push these two men further apart? And what might have been if they had found common ground? Robertson's candor was a rare glimpse behind the velvet curtain of classic Hollywood, where image and reality often clash. His breaking of the silence didn't just revisit old grudges. It invited a deeper understanding of two complex men whose legacies were forever intertwined. But the story doesn't end here. As we look back, it's clear that the echoes of their rivalry still influence how fans see both Robertson and Calhoun, and the legacy of the Silver Whip remains a fascinating chapter in Hollywood's wild, unpredictable history. Looking back, the story of Dale Robertson and Rory Calhoun is more than just a tale of two actors sharing a set. It's a snapshot of Hollywood's complicated heart, where image, personality, and past collide to shape legacies. Their story highlights how fame can both unite and divide, and how two men with very different paths left a lasting impact on the Western genre and beyond. Dale Robertson's legacy is one of integrity and consistency. He became a symbol of the classic Western hero, the steady hand, the moral compass audiences could rely on. His work ethic and grounded nature earned him respect not only from fans, but from peers in the industry. He showed that it was possible to succeed without sacrificing your principles. For many, he remains the embodiment of honor on and off screen, a true Western legend. Rory Calhoun's legacy is more complicated, but no less significant. He embodied the rebellious spirit, the rough edges beneath the polish. His past, full of twists and turns, made him a fascinating figure, one who brought a realness to the roles of outlaws and anti-heroes that few could match. Though his career was marked by ups and downs, his resilience and charm kept him in the spotlight. He reminds us that Hollywood's heroes don't always come dressed in white hats. Sometimes they wear scars. Together, their uneasy partnership on the Silver Whip became a metaphor for Hollywood itself, a place where ideals clash and personal stories shape the myth-making machine. Their dynamic showed the power of contrast, proving that sometimes a tension between two very different people creates something memorable, even if it's messy behind the scenes. What's most striking about their story is how it echoes broader themes: redemption, respect, and the struggle to reconcile past mistakes with present ambitions. Robertson's eventual willingness to speak openly about their relationship brought a new level of honesty to a narrative often clouded by silence and speculation. It reminded fans that behind every Hollywood legend, there are real human struggles. Their story also offers a cautionary note about the price of fame. Calhoun's past and reputation followed him, shaping his opportunities and personal life. Robertson's steadfastness protected his career, but may have also kept him from connecting more deeply with others. In a way, both men paid a price for their choices, one through chaos, the other through discipline. For fans and historians, the lasting question remains: what might have happened if Dale Robertson and Rory Calhoun had been able to bridge their differences? Could they have become friends, allies, or even collaborators beyond the screen? Or was their clash inevitable, a product of their times and personalities? Whatever the answer, their story remains captivating. It's a reminder that Hollywood isn't just about glamour and fame. It's about people, flaws, and all. And sometimes, the most interesting stories are those left unsaid, waiting for the right moment to be told. As we reflect on their lives and careers, it's clear that both Dale Robertson and Rory Calhoun left an indelible mark, not just on the Western genre, but on the very idea of what it means to be a star. Their rivalry, their respect, and their contrasting paths remind us that fame is complicated, and the truths behind the cameras are often more fascinating than the stories we see on screen. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more Inside Hollywood stories. Thanks for watching.